everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today as I get back into sewing my capsule wardrobe for this fall. So I started making my capsule wardrobe by making the Jade Pants from Dressmaking Amore, and in that video I used this gray suplex fabric from Our Social Fabrics, which is a fabric supplier here in the Vancouver area, and they specialize in deadstock fabrics. So that gray suplex just worked out beautifully for the Jade Pants, and now I'm going to make them again in another deadstock fabric. This one is one that I bought from FabCycle. So I'll link to both of those fabric suppliers because they both do just a great service to the fashion industry and to people like you and me who just love to get a good deal on fabric and save it from going to the landfill. So today I'm making the Jade Pants again. I'm going to change the pocket this time just so it looks like a different style of pants, just so I don't have exactly the same pair of pants in a different color. So I'll change the pocket to an angled pocket. I'll show you how easy it is to make that little change, super fast and easy. And then I'm going to cut them out of this beautiful sweater knit. My whole capsule wardrobe is going to be based on gray and burgundy, and I just love this fabric. It's just an acrylic knit, and it has a coordinating fabric as well that has a white stripe on it. That's going to be a jacket, but not today. Today I'm just going to do the Jade Pants and a little quick top to go with them, because I love those two fabrics together. Isn't that so cute? This one, I honestly don't know where I got it. It's been in my stash for a little while, but it just coordinates so nicely with that. So the Jade pattern comes from dressmakingamore.com. And then while I was shopping their site, you actually get a better deal on their patterns if you buy 3 at a time. So of course I bought 3. So the second one I bought is called the Dove sweater. And it just is simple, straightforward. It's going to be really quick, but I love the sleeves on it. And I thought that the sleeves would kind of echo the shape of the pants nicely. I'm not 100% sure about the neckline yet. We'll see when we get to that. I might make a change there, but maybe I'll end up loving it. Who knows? And sometime soon I'll get to a third dressmakingamore.com pattern for that beautiful jacket. So I'm going to start with the pants, and let me start by showing you how I'm going to change that pocket super fast and easy. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get busy. So now this pocket, the change I'm going to make, I'm going to draw a line 2 inches in from that seam allowance and 7 inches down also from the seam allowance. And then I'll just add seam allowance back on top of that. So I'll just use 3/8 of an inch. Okay. This is the pocket that comes with the Jade Pants. And so what I did is I just made one more copy of it. So then I'll just place this pattern piece, matching up the notches with the pocket. In fact, I'll just draw them through so I can see better. So I'll just match up those notches, and then I'll just draw a little bit at the top edge of the pant. I just want to duplicate this angle and a bit of that edge, no problem. Okay, so I've given myself about 4 inches that will get caught right into the waistband. That'll be nice. And now I just want to connect from that spot to the fullest point of the pocket. So again, I'm trying to find where my curve sort of fits into that pocket nicely and then connects to that point. Good. That is my new pocket piece. Well, it's one of them. This is now going to be called the pocket bag, and it contains the full corner of the pant. I'm going to layer another piece of paper underneath it and just staple the two together. And just so I can duplicate the new shape, and notice that my staples are all outside of my pattern piece. So the one that's the pocket bag is going to stay exactly like that. I won't be cutting here. Then I'll take this that's going to be the pocket facing and lay it right on top. I can see through it just enough that I can duplicate this line, the cutting line, right? I just traced this little line. That's it. So I'm just going to cut this one. I'm not going to cut the pant pattern. I'm just going to keep it folded because that's less of a commitment, right? I can always go back to make these again with either no pocket or the regular side seam pocket. So that's the pocket bag. The pocket facing will sew to that. So it goes back to fitting exactly like the original pant, but it'll have the angled pocket. So this one is called the pocket facing. And it can be out of the same fabric, or I could use a lighter weight fabric. And this one, instead of cutting 4 now, is going to be cut 2. And this is also cut 2. And I just need a bit of a grain line on here. I can see the grain line through this one. I'll duplicate that exact same grain line. Okay, we're ready to go. The waistband I altered before. I just made it a lot narrower, just so that it was sort of a snugger fit around the 1.25 inch wide elastic that I have. So it's 3.5 inches now, so that I just have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. And that worked out really nicely on the gray ones. So I don't need to worry about the sweater knit just instantly unraveling. It's going to be fine. I mean, it's already cut up at the top here and it's been fine. I've even washed it, but I think I will shy away from actually cutting my notches. And out of this fabric that's 80 inches long, I barely have enough. In fact, I'm going to have to dip into the jacket fabric to get the waistband and pocket pieces. So I just searched my entire stash for something to make the pocket facing out of, like a lightweight knit that was burgundy. So no, nothing. This is literally the best thing I can find. It's a silky knit. The solution is to put a little kind of a facing on the facing, which you often see in manufactured clothes. And so with a scrap of the knit, I'm going to line up the edge of the pocket with the lengthwise grain here. I think that will actually give the pocket some stability. And I'm just going to cut right like that. So I'll just be able to serge the edge of that facing and it'll go onto the pocket facing so that at least it keeps this edge of the pocket as free from bulk as possible, just so you don't get a really hard line there. So that'll be fine. The last thing I'm going to prepare is a little strip of interfacing for the front edge of the pant. So I'm actually cutting it the same size as the edge of the pocket facing. I got this whole roll for $1. That price tag makes me think I probably got it at Dress So in Vancouver. But what a deal, right? Because it's perfect for little trims like this. And it's way better to use the pattern piece to cut your strip of interfacing rather than just lining it up with the edge, because I could be already stretching this out without even knowing. It's good to know exactly how big that edge was supposed to be and then get it to stay that same size when you fuse on your interfacing. Because if I let that edge stretch out, that's going to give me a funny looking pocket. So this is just going onto the wrong side of the pocket edge. Okay, so to start, I'm serging just that inside edge of the facing, and I'll have the piece right side up. And I set my differential feed to 1.75 just to really give myself a solid edge on the knit. I don't want it to get stretched out at all. That serged edge is nice and stable. This is the lengthwise grain, so I wouldn't expect it to have too much stretch, but that differential feed is helping me a lot. And I don't have 4 cones of burgundy. In fact, I only have 1, and that's going to be on the regular machine. So I've set 4 different browns into the serger, and that seems to blend in okay. So now these pieces can go on like that. And now I'll just do a zigzag right on top of the serging. I like to zigzag it down so it keeps it nice and flat. Like this edge can't lift up if I kind of seal it with a zigzag. And the pocket is the only part of these pants that I'm going to go into great detail in, because the rest of the pant is exactly like the gray ones. And so I'll link the video for the gray suplex pants that I use the Jade pattern for. I'll link that video, and I'll link the original tutorial from Dressmaking Amore as well, because they have a very nice and quick tutorial on making the Jade pants. So right now, let's just go to the regular sewing machine. Okay, so now I'm using a zigzag that's 3 millimeters by 3 millimeters, and I'm just coming down this edge, sealing that edge. And so my needle's been going on and off and on and off. And I'll just go around all the edges just so it sort of tames this piece, and then I can treat this as if it's just one layer of fabric. Okay, so the pocket facings are prepared. So this is the pocket edge that has the little bit of interfacing on the one side. And now the pocket facing is going to go right side together with both of those. Even though this is like a bias cut and a stretch fabric, it's actually pretty stable now because of the lengthwise grain on that little bit of facing and because of the interfacing. So I'm not too worried about this pocket stretching out anymore. And so now when I sew it, I'm going to do it in 3 passes. I'm going to sew and then flip this over to understitch and then flip it into top stitch. Here's the first pass where I'm just coming down those pocket edges. So where this corner is, you want to go straight off of that. Okay, when I get to the end, lift up. My seam allowance is going to go off to my right, and the pocket facing goes over the seam allowance. I want to make sure that seam allowance stays going off to the right. I can feel that little flip there. So don't let it get away with that little flip. Keep your seam allowance going off toward the facing. So that was the second pass, and now the third pass. The pocket facing goes under, and then I'm going to just come up this side with a top stitch. And again, the edge of my presser foot riding along the edge of the fabric. This edge is so nice and stable now. There's no stretch to it. And that looks very smart. That looks great, and it's so stable. There's no stretch at all. It just looks perfect. I'm very happy with that. So there's the pocket facing all nicely attached. And so now we need the pocket bag, and that's going to go right side down onto the pocket facing. I'm just going to match up that curved edge. I'm not sewing up the side or across the top, just the 2 layers from that corner to this corner. And for that, I can use clips. Okay, and so now I can just serge these edges together. I don't necessarily have to sew and then serge. So let's go to the serger. I always want to check to make sure I'm catching both edges, otherwise I'll have a hole in the pocket. And that differential feed at 1.75 seems to be just doing the trick. Okay, pockets are done. So now that the pockets are looking great, I do have one instant regret. Can you see this? The grain line doesn't look perfect, right? So I used the grain line that was on the original pocket, but I wish I hadn't. So there's the full, that's marking the grain line of the pant. And you see the difference, right? You know, is it a huge deal? No, not at all. Am I gonna let it bother me? No, but at this moment right now, it bothers me. It would be nice if, especially if you were using a stripe or something, I would say don't go with their grain line, make your own and make it parallel to the grain line on the pant. Okay, anyway, moving on. Now I can tame these edges. The knit is starting to curl, which is the most annoying part about working with knits. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little stitch just at the edge of my presser foot. It won't show later, but I will use a long basting stitch just in case it does. Now I can get on with the business of just whipping these up. So I've got the two fronts right side together, and I'm going to serge along that center front seam. And I've also clipped the back together. So along the center back seam, I'll serge that as well. If you don't have a serger, no problem at all. Just sew your regular seam. Maybe use a stretch stitch, like a lightning or stem stitch, or a stretched out zigzag, and then zigzag your edges. If you are ready to get a serger, you will love it. Look how beautiful that is. And the seams from the outside look great. It's strong. It has a little bit of built-in stretch. That's beautiful. If you are ready to buy a serger, I highly recommend getting an old Kenmore if you can find one. But if you're ready for a new serger, check out my affiliate link for quality sewing. They ship to anywhere, and they carry my favorite serger, which is the Baby Lock. So the center front and center back seams are serged. They look great. And now it's time for side seams and inseams. So we're going to go right side together, and then I'm just going to clip. Now I didn't cut notches because I was afraid of this knit. So I'm just going to clip both corners, and it's a long, long seam, and then clip in between. If you just start at one end and work your way to the other, on a long, stretchy seam like this, it'll never work out right. So always clip or pin whatever matching points you have, and then clip or pin in between. So one side seam, and then the whole inseam, seam to seam, corner to corner, and in between. So the inseam gets done all in one. So now it is time for a party at the serger, because I'm going to do all of this at once. Down one side, up the inseam, down the inseam, up the other side seam. I'm going to have the front facing up when I'm serging, so that I get the good side of the serging always facing out. It just looks nicer on the inside, no big deal. That's a picky little detail, but here we go. The side seam done, now up the inseam. Right through the center. I can turn the seams in opposite directions just to make that a little less bulky. And then right up the other side seam. So I'll press my side seams toward the back, and I'm just pressing the inside because the iron does leave kind of shine on this knit. So I just want to press it from the inside. You can press knits, but just test it out. And if you don't like what it's doing, just do it from the inside. Then the outside is still great. And don't have your iron too hot. So I'll press all those seams toward the back. Okay, so I went ahead and did a few things. One is that I sewed just on the regular machine right at the base of the pocket, just because that is definitely a point of tension. So I wanted to make sure that was really strong. So I just kind of went over that area on both sides. And then I also serged around the bottom of both pant legs. So that's ready for its hem. But let's do the waistband next. So I took a nice piece of 1.25 inch wide elastic, and I just wrapped it around my waist comfortably snug and secured it there. I also took the waistband piece and folded it in half, right side together, and serged the center back edge. So those are ready to go together now. So the elastic goes in, the waistband just wraps around, and we're going to clip. So for me, the elastic is almost the same size as the waistband. All it does is gives the waistband more recovery. It just makes the waistband come back into shape and makes it more secure, because these are heavy pants. This elastic has to hold up these heavy pants. So you can at this point go directly to putting it into the waist, but I think I will just run around this edge with a basting stitch. I like to use that basting stitch for something that might end up showing later. If it shows and it's not meant to show, I want it to be easy to pull out. So I'll just be right back. Okay, so that was fast. I just whipped around there with that basting stitch. There's the center back seam. And then I'm going to fold it in half, and with my little scrap of soap, just mark the center front, and then those 2 points together, center front and center back, to mark my midway points there. Okay, so now with the pants inside out, waistband goes in, clip, seam to seam, and then all the matching points. These threads will get trimmed at the serger. So starting at the center back, just go slowly over seams because they are pretty thick. Okay, so the waistband is nicely on there. That looks good. I'm going to try it on and make sure I'm happy before I mark the length, and also just before I do a little line of sewing at both side seams and possibly the center front, just so that elastic can never fold. It'll just keep it nice and vertical. Alrighty, so I tried them on. Everything looks great. I'm just going around the top of the waistband just on the regular machine to reinforce, because there's a lot of weight hanging off this serge seam. So I just want to give it a secure stitch beside the serging. So I'm just stretching it as I go. So to hem these pants, I don't really want to have the bobbin thread showing on this side. I'd rather have it look like a hand sewn hem, but I don't want to take the time to do that. So I'm going to do a blind hem. And so I've got it pinned up the amount that I need, and I've got the head of the pin at the serged edge. I don't want to have it this way because I'm going to be folding this back. So put the head of the pin at the top edge of the hem so that when you fold it back, you still can see the head of the pin. Then the next thing I need is the R presser foot. Now this is the Baby Lock Sophia 2. Your machine might have a different presser foot for a blind hem, but what you want to look for is something like that that has this little divider. You want to look on your machine for something that looks like this, where it's maybe 3 or 4 stitches and then the little V, and 3 or 4 stitches and then a little V. That's a blind hem stitch. So on the Sophia 2, it's stitch 17. But when I select it, this looks like the normal width and length selectors, but it's different. When I go to those width and length selectors, the width functions differently. It doesn't really determine the width of the zigzag. What it does is determine how far to the left you're going to be moving. And because this is a thicker fabric, I want to go 3 steps to the left. The length can stay to the default, but that's the key to getting your blind stitch to work properly. If you're using a thinner fabric, you probably want it at a 1 or a 2. But this thick one, the 3 seems to be the ticket. So with my hem turned under and the edge of the hem sticking out, it goes under the presser foot. And that little divider just runs right along your fold, and the needle will make stitches on this layer and then hop over and pick up a stitch there and then hop over. So you just need to play around with that width selector until you're not missing any stitches, but you're also not taking too much of the fabric. So that seems good. My hem is sealed. I haven't missed any stitches, but I don't see any giant stitches either. And if you go around and you've missed a couple stitches, you can just go around a second time. Still looking good. Oh, I might have missed 1 or 2 stitches. I'll go around a second time to be sure. One thing to make sure you're not doing is curving off too soon, right? If you've got this divider lined up, but you're curving off here, then your needle is still not going to be getting to that fold. So try to go through straight. Okay, that's got it now. Good. I'm going to give a little final press to the hem, and then these pants are done. I should show you from the outside. There it is. That's pretty darn good, I'd have to say. Like the stitches just are not coming through, but it is secure. That's awesome. So I've already gone ahead and did a trial run with the dove pattern. This is just my mock-up, my test, and just 2 scrap pieces of fabric that I had in my stash. The sleeves are beautiful, but they're too long. But you know what? That's my life story. Sleeves are always 1.25 inches too long. I don't want to lose the beautiful flare on the sleeve. That's what drew me to this dove pattern to start with. So I'm not going to shorten it from the bottom. I'll just show you how I'll shorten it from kind of the middle, as well as trimming it up here a bit. Now the neckline, this part, like the actual kind of turtleneck or mock turtleneck, is quite comfortable. It's loose enough. It's not bothering me at all. It's this part that's bothering me, right? And I think that I'll be able to get rid of a lot of fabric here and just have it sit a little bit lower and be a little bit more comfortable. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. I'll show you how to make those quick little changes, and then I'll cut out the actual beautiful fabric that I'm really excited about. Here are the changes I'm going to make. It really is still big right up under the arm. It's still large there. I'm just going to follow this armhole line and then taper back out under the arm. That'll be just fine. And I can always do more fitting after the fact. So I can use my hip curve here. There, that'll be fine. I can use the same numbers. So this hits the corner at 12 centimeters. So I can just put the 12 over here, and that way I get the same shape. Good. I will just bring that notch in. So the back is ready. On the front, I think I do want to scoop the neck a little bit more. I'll just blend from the shoulder point into the neck like that. For the sleeve, I want it 1.25 inches shorter, but I love this flare, so I don't want to just cut it off the bottom because that reduces the flare quite a bit. So instead, I'll take it out of the smallest part. So I've drawn 2 lines 1.25 inches apart, and then I'll just take the lower line and bring it up to meet the upper line. So that way I'm taking the extra length out of the middle, and then I just need to blend those lines in together. So I'm just going to draw a straight line there. So the sleeve is ready, and I think the collar I'm just going to cut as is. So with a 60-inch wide fabric, I just need enough length, 1 length for the front and back and 1 length for the sleeve, plus the collar. I'll give myself a center back notch at the neck, and I'll snip the little notch at the armhole. Okay. For the collar, it's especially important to me that I follow a stripe. And little notch at the center of the collar. Oh, I forgot. I forgot to do the notch at the center of the neck, so I'll just do it now while it's still folded. Good. So sometimes I use a strip of lengthwise grain, just a little strip to support the shoulder, but this is really stretchy in the lengthwise grain as well. So I think I might try to find something else just to serge into that shoulder seam. So I have this scrap of white t-shirt from when I made that memory quilt. So I'm just going to cut a strip along the lengthwise grain, and I just want to mark it to be the length of the shoulder seam. I want to have 2 pieces that are this long. And I'll put a little space in between there. Okay, that'll do. Okay, so my first sewing step is the shoulder seams. So these are now right side together. And then I want to lay that little strip on top of the front. And then I'll clip 2 corners to the first mark. And you can see that it's important to use the actual pattern pieces when you're marking your strip. If I used these pieces of fabric to mark that strip, there would be nothing stopping me from stretching these out. So the pattern is definitely your most reliable source there. Now for most of this project, in fact everything except the hem, I'm going to be using the serger. If you don't have a serger, the most commonly recommended way to sew it is with 2 lines of stitching. Now you can use a stitch that has stretch built into it. One that I like is like a lightning stitch, or some people call it a stem stitch. That can work really well. That just has a little bit of stretch built into it so that your thread doesn't break afterwards. On a knit like this, I'm usually 100% fine with using a universal needle. It's only on actually one like this, a more cottony, like a harder yarn, that's when I sometimes want a ballpoint needle. But I'm going to stick with my universal needle for this project. Now I can just trim off the excess. This is why I wanted the front on top and then the strip on top of the front, so that I could still have my seam allowance going to the back without having to fold this strip. It just keeps it a little less bulky and keeps that shoulder seam nice and stable. And you only have to worry about that when you have a seam on the horizontal, right? The vertical is not going to stretch so much, but the horizontal can stretch quite a bit, so it's good to stabilize it with a strip that is cut on the vertical. And I do think it's a little bit wide, so I think I will just trim that down a smidge. These scissors are my favorite, LDH, and just like all of my tools, the link is in the description. Good. So now this is one of the few times where I don't start by laying my piece right side up on the table. When I'm setting a sleeve, sometimes I think it makes it easier to start with your body, with the armhole opened out like this and the wrong side facing up. And I honestly put this fabric underneath my little magnifier because I couldn't tell right from wrong side, but I really think they're exactly the same. But I do have a right and a left sleeve. There's my notch for the back. And there's the corresponding notch. So if I lay it like this, so notch is facing the notch, and I've got a little notch at the top of the sleeve as well. And I think in many cases, this is the easiest way to set a casual knit sleeve. This is the easiest way, having them both wrong side up, and then just pick up your matching points, clip those together, and then clip in between. So I find that notch to make sure I've got the sleeve the right way, and then clip all of the matching points, which means the corners, the top notch goes to the seam, and then the notch that marks the backs, and then clip in between. Okay, back to the serger. So here I want to have the sleeve facing up. This is the sleeve. If I'm like this and the sleeve is down, I can't keep my eye on extra folds of fabric that are going to happen in the sleeve. I want the sleeve up so I can keep my eye on any extra fabric so that I don't accidentally cut fabric that I don't mean to cut. The sleeves are on, they look fine, and I also serged across the bottom edge of both sleeves. I still have my differential feed not quite as tight as I did for the pants, but I have it at 1.25. And so that has eased in that bottom edge of the sleeve. Hopefully that comes in handy when we go to hem the sleeves. But in any case, I often do find it's easier to serge the sleeves now rather than after they've been joined into a circle. So I serge the bottom edge of the sleeve, and now I've got it still inside out and the front facing up. And now it's time to do the whole side seam. So again, it's matching points. So here it's just corners, seam to seam, and corner to corner again. And then clip in between. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that I'm not matching stripes. On a stripe that's this fine, I would kill my eyes if I try to match that. If it happens to match, I'm happy. But if it doesn't match, that is okay. It's just too tiny. I just do not have that kind of patience. And I really don't think anybody in my life will ever notice if these stripes match or not. On a bigger plaid or a bigger stripe, 100% I'm gonna match those. But on this, no, I cannot. So the front side is up, edges together. Okay, side seams are done. While I'm here now, I'm going to go around the whole bottom edge. And I want to push the seam allowances to the back. And how I know which one is the back is because I know I had the front up when I was serging. So that good side of the serging where I see the two lines of the needle threads as opposed to this bad side of the serging. This is up. Then I know that I'm pushing that toward the back. So I know this is the front, it's getting pushed toward the back, and I want to have the good side of the fabric up now when I go around, so that when I fold that hem up, it'll be the good side of the serging that shows in the hem. And still, while I'm at the surgery, I'm going to take the collar and go in half, right sides together, and serge just that little seam. Press that seam to one side, doesn't matter which side, And then fold that in half, just like a cuff. So the seam is on the inside, bringing the raw edges together. Just lovely. And then give that a little press. I love it. So it's all just the collar and hems now. I've got my little notch at the center back and center front. Here's my little mock turtle, and it's going to go down inside the circle of the neck. All three raw edges together. The seam goes to that back notch. The notch of the collar goes to the notch of the front neck, and then one or two clips in between. So I made that neckline a little bit bigger, right? When I trimmed some fabric away, it makes the opening bigger. And so I'm having to stretch this collar to meet the neck edge. And I think that that is 100% fine. So we just serge around that circle. So let's go. So starting at the center back, I'll trim my threads as I go here. Okay, so because I did some fitting before, right, with that mock-up, I haven't had to try this one on yet, but there's still a good chance I'm going to want to take it in more under the arm. So before I go ahead and hem everything, I'm going to just pop it on and make sure I'm happy. Okay, so I did that last little try on, so now I'm ready to hem it. I just did 2 little hem samples to help me decide, first of all, do I want to use a white thread or is the burgundy thread okay for the hem? And I think the burgundy thread is fine. Then I used 2 different stitches. This one is a stretch stitch. It's a lightning stitch or stem stitch. It's like a stretched out zigzag. So it's got stretch built into it so that after when you wear the garment, you're not going to break that thread. On this side, I used a straight stitch, just a regular straight stitch, which I often do on knits. And people always ask, like, really, can you do that? And if you sew it stretched, then afterwards you can stretch it again. And then when I gave them a press, which one looks better? This still looks like a zigzag to me, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think that the straight stitch does just look more professional. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my universal needle and a straight stitch. Now, the other thing to consider is the fact that the sleeve is cut on that curve. You see right here how my serging, I think I had the differential feed at 1.25 here, and it just eases in that top edge a little bit. In fact, in this case, I think it eased it in too much. I might even have to stretch that back out again, but I think I'm going to be fine. I think a finger width or 1.5 centimeters, 5/8 of an inch is fine on a curve, especially on a stretch knit like this. 3 little hems and a final press, and then my whole outfit is done. I can't wait to show you. I'll start at the seam of any one of these 3 hems. I don't mind which one I start at. So then I'll just stretch it to the maximum amount that the serging will stretch, right? The serging's already giving it some stability. I like the look of the straight stitch. I think that looks great. And I cannot break the thread because the serging won't let me. So the body is hemmed and just the 2 sleeves to go. You know what that means. We are done. Oh, I'm going to put on the whole outfit right after I give these hems a final press. I'll put on the whole outfit and show you. You see this little twist here? I don't love it, but I'm going to be able to press it out. Good. So any little twist like that, I should be able to manipulate it with my hands and then press it. Nice. There we go. That is a pretty sleeve. Well, don't I just feel like $1,000,000 in this new outfit? I think this is a really great start to my capsule wardrobe. So yeah, I'm completely happy with this top. The collar, I did shave off an extra 1/2 inch off that back seam just because it was sort of just a little too droopy. but it's still super comfortable. And so that worked out just fine. I just love the sleeves. I love the fit now that I've taken that shoulder in and trimmed down the body. I think it is kind of important when you've got like a full sleeve to have the top trim in other areas so it just doesn't look big all over. So yeah, super happy with this outfit. The pants are fantastic. I did wonder if I was getting into dangerous territory using a sweater knit for pants because they kind of fit slim around the hip. They just hang so nicely. I love the angled pockets. That worked out great. And overall, I'm just completely thrilled with this outfit. Of course, the top goes equally well with the gray Jade pants that I made before. So the next part of my capsule wardrobe is going to be this jacket that I'm going to use that third Dressmaking Amore pattern, and I'm going to use their Diana jacket. It's a little crop jacket. So I look forward to sharing that one with you as well. So I'm really glad you were here with me right till the end. I always love that. Thank you so much for being with me today. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.